Hi, everyone. I'm Ethan Heilman. I'm going to be talking about how we can defend Bitcoin from quantum attacks. And before we begin, I want to talk about why signatures are so important to Bitcoin. The functionality, or the essential functionality of Bitcoin, is the ability to securely authenticate the transfer of Bitcoin. The securely authenticate part is what we mean when we say not your keys, not your coins. If we can't authenticate who the original owner of the coin was to send it to another coin, if that person cannot authenticate the transaction, then ownership in Bitcoin is impossible. And the second part, which I won't be getting that much into, is that you actually need the ability to transfer the coins. It's fairly easy to create a cryptocurrency where no one can send anyone money, like an Excel spreadsheet, incredibly secure, but the transfer part is also extremely important to the value of Bitcoin. And this authentication of digital signatures, or this authentication depends on digital signatures. That's how the authentication works. So if digital signature algorithms are broken, it's really hard to say anyone owns Bitcoins in an output. And if you imagine that at some point someone solved all the math behind Schnorr signatures that Bitcoin uses, it would be really hard for Bitcoin to recover from that because everyone would have everyone else's secret key. What this would look like is an attacker would see someone's public key, say Alice's public key, and they would be able to compute the signing key, Alice's signing key, and then be able to sign as Alice, which means that how do you tell who the original person that held those coins was? The attacker can sign, produce signatures. Alice can produce signatures. It's very, very difficult to, it's essentially impossible to then unentangle who should actually be able to transfer these coins. And the biggest threat to this is, the biggest current threat is a future quantum computer. We do have quantum computers today, but they're not powerful enough to threaten Bitcoin's cryptography. A quantum computer in the future that may be built we don't know when and if such a computer will be built, but the current timelines have been getting shorter as we are making increasing progress towards building such a thing. And it's really worth preparing for because it's so hard to deal with it after the fact. It's like it's like closing the barn door after all the cows have escaped. It's like, how do you determine, you want to give people back their coins. How do you determine who is the original holder of those coins in the first place if your digital signature algorithm is broken? And even if you don't believe in Q-Day, even if you don't believe a powerful enough quantum computer will exist, you should also prepare for this because classical attacks exist where someone might solve the math and break the signature scheme without needing a new type of computer. And I think it's a really important observation that has been made about cryptography, and this is from the Guidelines for Cryptographic Agility, RFC 7696, is that cryptographic algorithms age. They become weaker with time. We should expect, every 30 or maybe every 40 years to have to rotate the signature algorithms that Bitcoin uses. So what this talk is about, we're going to look at quantum attacks on Bitcoin signature algorithm. And we're going to look at a plan for deploying post-quantum signatures via algorithm agility, via this ability to migrate to new signatures. So going forward, if an algorithm is broken, we can recover from that and move to a new signature. What I'm not going to talk about is the question of freezing quantum vulnerable outputs. I think that's a really important topic and something that we should determine. But it's a separate problem. And if you think about it, if the community decides to freeze quantum vulnerable outputs, we still need post-quantum signatures in Bitcoin. And if we decide not to freeze quantum vulnerable outputs, we also need PQ signatures. So this is an important problem to solve regardless of where you fall in the freeze Satoshi's coins versus not freeze Satoshi's coins. So a cryptographically relevant quantum computer is a quantum computer powerful enough to break cryptography. Such a computer does not break all cryptography. It's it's only good at a very small number of things. they would break Bitcoin's current signature algorithms, ECDSA and EC-Schnorr. But there are post-quantum signature algorithms that exist that Bitcoin could move to. Hash functions are generally thought to be secure. There is a weakening of hash functions from quantum computers, but these attacks are generally not thought of as practical, but theoretical, due to the inability to scale and parallelize such attacks. And it's important to note that cryptographically relevant quantum computers do not currently exist, at least not publicly, and probably not in secret, or at least that's my opinion. We have quantum computers today, but they're just not powerful enough. All right, so there's been a lot of debate about when such a thing will be built. Some cryptographers have suggested a 10% risk by 2030. Other cryptographers disagree with that. It's no longer an unthinkable thing for an expert in the field to say that a cryptographically relevant quantum computer that could break Bitcoin's signatures won't exist by 2030. But no one actually knows, and there's a diversity of opinion here. So let's look at how we could migrate Bitcoin to post-quantum cryptography to protect against the creation of a cryptographically relevant quantum computer. Well, so we're here right now. And the first thing we need to do is we need two consensus changes. One consensus change is we need support for post-quantum signatures in Bitcoin. And the second is we need Pay-to-Merkle-Rote or BIP 360 for a quantum safe tap script. I won't talk about why we can't use Taproot for this in my talk, but I'm happy to take a question on it. I do have a backup slide. There's actually a lot of people think the consensus changes is the hard part, but there's a lot of non-consensus standards that will need to be created and changed that I think is going to be a significant, if not overwhelming, amount of the work. This includes HD seeds having support for post-quantum algorithms, wallet standards, and then once all of that's done, we have the problem of getting this adopted by wallets and major custodians. And I see the adoption as actually the thing that's likely to take the longest, but is also the most compressible, because the closer the threat of a quantum computer is, the greater the fire to get people to move quickly. And one really important thing with the adoption by wallets is that this the scheme I'm proposing here requires that wallets no longer reuse public keys when they are storing funds in quantum safe outputs. So let's look at some post-quantum signature algorithms. These numbers are specific to these algorithms, but we do have a lot of flexibility in changing some of the parameters. So SLH-DSA, it's probably the safest algorithm we could have. It's based on a very well-studied, mature hardness assumption that almost every other signature algorithm also makes. But the signatures are huge. They're almost 8 kilobytes. Shrinks, which was a recent proposal, and I believe someone talked about in one talk ago in the other room, has very small signatures comparatively, but it is stateful, which means the wallet has to track how many signatures it's generated for the wallet to be secure. Thankfully, Shrinks has the property that you can fall back to something like SLH-DSA, so that if you somehow lose track of how many signatures you've generated, you can pay the extra fee cost and still be secure. There's also some other schemes. One of the ones that I like a lot, that I think a lot of people are very excited about, is QSign. It has the smallest signatures. It lets you do a lot of the things that we've grown to become accustomed to with elliptic curves. It's a really excellent scheme, but it's probably not ready for deployment today. both because the verification cost is extremely slow, and two, because its hardness assumption is based on isogenies, and many cryptographers are uncomfortable with isogenies as a hardness assumption. So we probably want to wait for it to be significantly more mature before we deploy it. All right. So let's say we add the support for shrinks as a leaf script to Bitcoin, and let's say we also have paid a Merkle root. Well, a transaction that we could construct that has two leaves. It can either be spent with a Schnorr signature, or it can be spent with a shrink signature. And you can put whatever post-quantum scheme you want in here if you don't want to use shrinks, but I'm going to use shrinks as the example here. So it can be spent with either of these, but if you spend it with shrinks, your pub key, your Schnorr pub key, is still kept secret. So no one can perform a quantum attack against you. But if you're using it today and there's no quantum computer, you can just spend via Schnorr as you do without having to put a much larger shrinks or post-quantum signature on the blockchain and pay the fees for that. And then if and when Schnorr is broken, you can just switch to spending with shrinks instead and gain post-quantum security at spend time. Or rather, you fail safe to post-quantum security. You only reveal your Schnorr public key when you spend, and you don't have to reveal your Schnorr public key if you spend with post-quantum, so you can spend securely even after a quantum computer is created. And so one of the most important things to think about with how to manage this migration is that you actually have to have people adopt it to be secure. Post-quantum signatures are only going to help if like wallets and other members of the ecosystem support it, and if users actually end up using it. So we need to make the engineering to support it simple. We need to lower the cognitive burden. It's very costly to disrupt existing workflows and expectations. And we also need a low upfront cost. If you have a high upfront cost, it makes it much less likely that for someone who is a little bit worried about quantum computers but not that worried, they might not be willing to bear that cost. But if you make the cost only paid when a quantum computer comes out, then they're like, okay, I've hedged my bets, but I haven't had to pay a lot to hedge my bets. So with P2MR and a post-quantum check sig, it keeps the fees low when you're in the Schnorr leaf spend zone. And then when you no longer trust Schnorr, you can spend with post-quantum signatures, and you're protected as soon as you move over, even though you haven't paid the costs. All right, so let's say that we've gotten through all of this. We've activated the consensus changes. We've got ecosystem adoption. Users and wallets have stopped spending with Schnorr. What do we do? What do we do now? We would only then have one signature algorithm. What if whatever post-quantum signature algorithm we chose got broken? We could add a new signature algorithm, say skew sign. Maybe by this point it's mature enough that we trust it. To check sig, and then you could just spend your output using the current signature to a new Merkle tree with shrinks and skew sign. And we could repeat this each time. Like, let's say a signature, let's say on average, a signature algorithm is broken every 30 years. I don't know what the actual number is, but so we need to rotate signature algorithms every 30 years, maybe every 50 years. This provides a very clean migration path for moving to new signature algorithms. An additional benefit of this is it respects holder's choice. If someone completely believes a quantum computer doesn't exist and they don't want to use post-quantum signatures, they don't have to. It allows people who wish to be protected to upgrade their security to the level of protection they believe they need. An additional thing to think about with these two signature algorithms is that we probably want them to be very different. The advantages of algorithm agility is we can add signature algorithms as we need them. If they're broken, we never have a single point of failure. We can always have a secure one and move to it. We probably, in terms of algorithm selection, want to have one algorithm that we think won't be broken for a really, really long time, that optimizes for security, and then another algorithm, which is your sort of everyday algorithm that has nice features like aggregation, smaller signatures, faster verification. So let's say we've added now a second PQ signature algorithm. Well, what do we do after that? Well, one approach, if we want to continue to get signature sizes down, is that we can use a zero knowledge proof that the signatures exist and are correct, and then no longer include signatures in transactions. We can do this in a approach called BitZip that I proposed that you can read on the bottom here, or you can also just use a ZK rollup if we want to do this at the application layer that many other people have proposed. I'm going to skip through this. My favorite paper of 2026 just came out. It is quantum safe Bitcoin transactions without soft forks. It's really, really cool work. I recommend anyone check it out. It works with no soft fork, which is incredible. The problem is that it has much larger post-quantum signatures, and it requires about $100 in computation to produce a spending transaction. And it doesn't have this nice behavior of being able to use Schnorr today and then post-quantum tomorrow, but from the same output. So if we get a soft fork, I would recommend P2MR plus shrinks, because it will get you roughly the same thing as QSB, but with much smaller signatures, and this not having to pay $100 per spend, and also with this fail-safe mechanism where you can just use it today, and then if tomorrow a quantum computer comes out, you're still protected against a quantum computer and can spend with the post-quantum signature path. So quantum attacks are a solvable problem for Bitcoin. The earlier we start, the less we have to rush. If Q-Day happens, it's better to have sort of big signatures or something that's kind of a little bit annoying for now than just the destruction of Bitcoin. And we have ways of, if we had to use very big signatures, of shrinking them like long-term on a decade timescale. But I think we were actually really lucky that the threat came from quantum computers, because quantum computers provide a lot of warning. We can see them coming. But if someone were to do a classical attack, maybe discover some new math and elliptic curves, maybe the only warning we'd get is like a new paper up on archive, and then all of a sudden the signature algorithm would be broken. And so I think we should use quantum to move to this algorithm agility approach where we no longer have a single point of failure in terms of the signature algorithm, but have two signature algorithms that can protect each other. And I'm very optimistic that we will get it done in terms of solving the post-quantum problem, because the threat is large enough that it reduces the costs of adopting a soft fork. It's like, if you don't adopt the soft fork, it's really, really bad. And if you do, you save Bitcoin. So like, even though soft forks are kind of annoying, I'm very optimistic that because of the nature of the threat, that we will in fact get it done.